Hey, folks, y'all see the title of this? I'm just going to speak just enough. Hopefully, Chink Uger, y'all know how I've talked about him before, but I'll leave it alone. This video is from the Young Turks website, and I remember the story. I just don't remember Chink talking about it. And I remember when he was at MSNBC. So what we're going to do is I'm going to play this video. Y'all see the title of it is MSNBC ordered Ed Schultz. And Ed Schultz, I know he's passed. I know that. I was no fan of Ed Schultz whatsoever because he carried the water for Ms. NBC, and his reward was they fired him after he done what he said. And then when he went to Russia Today, which is no longer on YouTube, they didn't bump them off ever since the the battle with Ukraine, and YouTube bumped them off. So I guess that they just telling you they're we prefer the Azov battalion over Vladimir Putin and Dmitry Medvedev. Hey, it's their platform. They can do whatever they want. So what I'm going to do here is listen, like I say, because I ain't going to talk much, but I got to break in. So I'm not, I'm not violating the fair use thing because, Chink can make it go away. So we're going to play it. Ed Schultz is going to tell y'all what he was doing with Bernie Sanders, when he was ordered not, and I remember making a video and everybody was giving me crap, and here it is. But see, they won't listen to me, but maybe y'all will listen to somebody that's a little lighter hue. That's a joke. It's a joke. It's not, but it is. And how the fix was in for Hillary over Bernie. They talk about, but of course he didn't talk about it until he left and went to RT. So let's go ahead and go and get this show on the road. It is a 13-minute video, so like I say, I'm not going to talk no more than I have to.
Ed Schultz is a well-known progressive talk show host. He had a radio show for a long time, and then he was on MSNBC. He was an anchor there for a long time. I would know. I filled in for Ed on a number of occasions. We worked together at MSNBC for some time. Ed was there, though, to be fair, much longer than I was. And he has left MSNBC. Now he's at RT. And he gets some criticism for being at RT because they say, well, it's owned by the Russian government, so doesn't that mean that you're getting orders from them?
Yeah, everybody said that a lot, but just like any legacy, state-owned media, which a lot of countries have, and I'm, the BBC is ran, well, but anybody, y'all know all that. But anyway, let's go.
Well, he was on the Jamie Weinstein show, and he wanted to address that. And in so doing, he revealed stunning facts, not just about MSNBC, but also about their particular disdain for Bernie Sanders and how they wouldn't cover him. But first, let's hear out him on his time at MSNBC.
There was more oversight and more direction given to me on content at MSNBC than there ever has been here at RT. Many times I was told what to lead with on MSNBC. Many times.
And I've heard that quite a few times of non-Russian, people that's then went on RT. Remember, ABL was on RT. But I've heard that they really didn't lean on them too much, but I'm quite sure it was probably depending on the topic. But but I've heard that from a handful of people that went on RT that were Americans or Brits or whatever the case may be. Anyway, let's go.
Times I was told what I was not going to do, and I've got a story that Had I not been involved in it, I would have never believed it. And Phil Griffin, who I consider a friend to this day, was a watchdog, far more than anything I am exposed to here at RT America.
Did he tell you what to say? Did he tell you an angle to take?
Often.
Imagine, look, every legacy media, I don't care, you pick the channel, Fox, MSNBC, CNN, you pick them. They got a watchdog, and the watchdog is on the floor. He's on the killing floor with you. He's physically on the floor with you, but from a power position of power, he's not on the floor with you. He's on the 13th floor. So one foot's up there and the other foot is down here with y'all.
So now that is a great number of people who have left MSNBC and told a very similar story, including myself. Now, actually, in my case, Phil Griffin gave me general directions. They were awfully specific in telling me which direction to go in, where he said that outsiders are cool, they wear leather jackets, they ride motorcycles, but we're not outsiders, we're NBC, we're insiders. He told me that, which is stunning. He said, we're the establishment and you have to act like it. But he did not give me directions on specific stories. Ed here is saying, no. He would often give him directions on specific stories. It's much worse. But of course, both Ed and I, in different ways, chose not to stay at MSNBC because of that situation. And so it's a point I make often, not just about MSNBC, but about all of corporate media. You think they're not influenced, that there's no collusion there? Well, okay. I agree that Al Jazeera is owned by Qatar. Of course it is. BBC is owned by the British government, by the way. And, whenever you make that comparison, people go, oh, no. But that's Western and that's good and they're the good guys and that's totally fine. And it is an interesting system and I think the BBC does wonderful work. And from time to time, I think Al Jazeera does wonderful work. I also think that they are not going to cover Qatar, honestly. And I get that.
Here's a shocker, and it kind of pains me to say this. I think Al Jazeera does a better job at covering legacy topics than the BBC, but that's just me.
That bias exists. There's no question about that. Same with RT. There's been good folks who worked at RT and reported that they did not get any commands from the Russian government or otherwise. Do I trust RT's coverage of Russia? No, I do not. They are owned by the Russian government. So that stuff is relevant. But do you think that the giant corporations that own the major cable news channels don't also influence coverage on those channels? That they don't care about their profits. They don't care about the larger parent corporation and mergers that need to be approved by the government, net neutrality that they would like to end, and all the different business they have in front of the government, that they don't care about that. Those affect billions upon billions of dollars. Is it?
And that's what Shink does to this day. Remember, this was 6 years ago, 7 years ago. You've actually turned into what you're speaking about.
The conspiracy theory by the mainstream media that giant corporations, if they have a media arm, all of a sudden don't care about the profit motive, that they don't want to maximize profit, that out of the goodness of their heart, they do not influence the people on air, and that they do not select people on air ahead of time to make sure that they support the status quo. That's the conspiracy theory, that corporations do not care about their profits. That's a preposterous theory. And in practice, I have seen it, as Schultz has seen it, Phil Donahue has seen it, and so many other hosts have seen that, in fact, of course they care about their political interests and, most importantly, their business interests. And if you touch those, well, you're in a world of trouble. But this story gets even more interesting because in the case of Ed Schultz, apparently they told him not to cover Bernie Sanders in specific. So here's a stunning story about that.
Did he tell you what to say? Did he tell you an angle to take?
Often. In fact, when Bernie Sanders was announcing that he was going to be a candidate for the nomination of the Democratic Party in Burlington, Vermont, I was the only cable host between Fox, MSNBC, and CNN that was there live to cover it. Now, there were live cameras there, but we had coordinated with the Sanders campaign that at 5 o'clock he was going to make his announcement, and we were going to cover this on the Ed Show. I go to Bernie Sanders' house that afternoon, an interview in the backyard, about a 15-minute interview. The grandkids are running around. It's a big day for the Sanders family. He's going to announce that he's running for president. We're going to carry it live later on in the day, and we're going to run this one-on-one tape with Bernie. 3,000 people are there on Lake Champlain. It's 5 minutes to air, and I get a phone call from Phil Griffin. You're not covering this. I said, Phil, Bernie Sanders is announcing he's running for president. He's going to be a president. I don't care. You're not covering this. And it got rather contentious. And
Why though?
I don't, well, now you're asking me for opinion. I'm giving you fact right now about what happened. Mm-hmm. And other people who were there with me will attest to the fact and back me up that this is what happened. We were told that we had to cover something down in Texas that was totally meaningless, and another press conference in Baltimore, which was already had been in the news for a few days. We're covering Bernie Sanders live. We're coordinated with his campaign. And I'm told 5 minutes before, you're not covering Bernie Sanders. Now, let me give you the opinion. I think the Clintons were connected to Andy Lack, connected at the hip. I think that they didn't want anybody in their prime time or anywhere in their lineup supporting Bernie Sanders. I think that they were in the tank for Hillary Clinton, and I think it was managed. And 45 days later, I was out at MSNBC.
Wow.
And this, like I said, this was 6 years ago. And shortly after that, July 5th of 2018, Ed Schultz succumbed and is no longer with us. I ain't saying they had anything to do about it, but when you when a certain name, you heard the female name that he mentioned, yeah, okay.
So I've told you in the past about how the media and the cable news channels in specific, in some ways, rigged the election on behalf of Hillary Clinton. And I don't mean in terms of a smoke-filled room and they got together and passed around notes, but given that.
Be careful. That see, he's a totally different Saint now. So, you know, I think they got to him. But anyway.
Story, I might have to rethink that. Room and they rigged the election on behalf of and the cable news channels in specific, in some ways rigged the election on behalf of Hillary Clinton. And I don't mean in terms of a smoke-filled room and they got together and passed around notes, but given Ed's story, I might have to rethink that. But no, in the sense that they would say that Hillary Clinton already had a gigantic lead, that she had a lead of hundreds of delegates. Well, those were the superdelegates, and the superdelegates don't vote until the end of the primary season. And they often change their vote. They did when Obama and Hillary were running. The last time there was a contentious Democratic primary, a lot of the superdelegates changed their votes. So counting them ahead of time was, at best, journalistic malpractice. CNN did it, Fox News did it, MSNBC did it. But it turns out that was the tip of the iceberg. It looked like they were not covering Bernie Sanders at all. And usually what they say is, oh, no, we didn't think he had a chance of winning. Well, he closed a 60-point lead. That was historic. That was unbelievable in 2015. And they still wouldn't cover him. And now we find out from Ed that, in fact, no, they actively were told not to cover Bernie Sanders. I had another on-air talent at MSNBC tell me off the record that if they ever criticized Hillary Clinton, they would immediately get a call from management. I don't know if you remember, but Mika Brzezinski on air said that if she ever said that Hillary Clinton wasn't necessarily going to win, the Clinton campaign would call MSNBC and then MSNBC would talk to their hosts.
I remember that.
So if that's not in the tank for Hillary Clinton, I don't know what is. So yes, MSNBC, the so-called progressive channel, rigged the elections in some ways, in the ways that they could, against the progressive candidate.
And y'all think they stopped? You think they're stopped? Well, they learned their lesson and they gave up on that. Really? How do you think we got Side Road Joe the first time?
Ed's not done yet. One last clip here. Listen.
When you see how the campaign unfolded, Donna Brazile feeding Hillary Clinton questions at the campaign, the DNC undercutting Bernie Sanders, the super delegates that were organized by Hillary Clinton. I mean, in my state of Minnesota, where I'm a resident and pay taxes, Al Franken and Amy Klobuchar were super delegates, and despite the fact that Bernie Sanders won Minnesota, they supported Clinton. It was the fix was in. The fix was in with the mainstream media. The fix was in with managing the news and shutting down Bernie Sanders. And it wasn't until he started matching the Clintons and raising money that he became, well, we got to cover this guy. But from the start, the Clintons didn't want any competition. They didn't want Bernie Sanders around. They didn't want the Keystone XL pipeline. They didn't want to push her on that issue. They didn't want to push her on free education for all, and they certainly didn't want to push her on the TPP and also universal health care. Those were four main issues that Bernie Sanders, had he not been to the campaign, Hillary Clinton would have never had to address. And so I think the fix was in early on to Deep Six Bernie. To this day, it kind of pisses me off.
Well,
I'm going to stop it right there. I'll put the link in if anyone wants to see the rest of it or hear it again without my paltry commentary. But I'll put it in the description box anyway. Tell me what you think, boys and girls. I love stuff like this. This kept like this, like sport, like milk. This this isn't one. No, take that back. This is wine. This did age like wine. This didn't. I guess it depends on your political leaning, whether you consider this aging like wine or aging like milk. This one did age like wine. I'll take wine. And I got the Observer. You see, he's right here. He agrees with me. Well, actually, I'm agreeing with him because he's a pretty spooky dude. Don't let the smooth face fool you. Y'all be good and be safe. Bye.
You're a victim.
Here we go, CSI.